There's a ton of noise out there. So how do you get decision makers to pay attention to your brand? Start a podcast and invite your ideal clients to be guests on your show. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I'm your host for today's episode, Logan Lyles with Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Scott Vaughan. He is the CMO at Integrate. Scott, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing fabulous. Thanks, Logan.
It is great to have you on the show, Scott. We are going to be talking about some key lessons learned in, a crucial stage of growth from 1 million to 10 million in ARR, and really excited to have you unpack some of the lessons that you've learned in going through that. Before we go straight there, Scott, I would love for you to give a little bit of background to listeners on yourself and, what you and the team at Integrate are up to these days.
Yeah, thanks. Well, boy, it's great to join you. I love that the title of your show is about growth. That's so much more what marketing is about these days. My background is really, believe it or not, classically trained marketing person in communications. Started as a brand and a product person over time. Took a stint of probably about 10 years of the career and moved into sales and sales management and really got that view of the world. But marketing's my passion. So for the last 12 years or so, 13 years, I've been really in the office of marketing executive leadership and being a CMO of a large global tech entity, and now at a really high growth SaaS company. And you get some learnings along the way, especially filling both those sales and marketing roles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that offers such a unique perspective that informs, where the merger and the overlap of those two functions are happening today. So with that being said, Scott, I would love to dive straight into some of your lessons learned and background that we're going to be sharing that I think will be helpful for other marketers at various stages in their growth journey. So let's talk about the early days at Integrate and, where you guys were at, where you started with building the brand and what that first stage kind of looked like and what you learned in the early days there.
Sure. Well, I joined Integrate a few years in to the company's founding, and amazingly, they had the right idea and a noble mission and the right idea even for a solution. And I stumbled into it saying, well, can it really do this? And so Integrate's been a pioneer, a first mover in an area of, is now called demand orchestration, but that works with marketing automation and CRM to really help marketers get clean, intelligent leads into the system. It all sounds great now, but really was a very entrepreneurial, like many startups, and it was stop me when you like something. Looking for opportunity and looking for product market fit.
Stop me when you like something. I love that.
That's the selling, right? You want to be able to listen to customers and develop products. While the core idea and the core solution was always there, how you bring that to market, how you package it, price it, deliver it, all really matters in those early stages.
Yeah. So where did you find some of the struggles or things maybe that you wish you would have known going in as you got to that next phase of testing product market fit, determining what is our focus, what is our swim lane? I imagine those were kind of the next steps in the evolution as leading marketing for the organization.
Yeah, boy, there's so many learnings there. Logan. But the first thing I think that really worked is I didn't focus internally. When I started, I basically left the nest and went into market talking to prospects, customers, influencers, and identified people who had a pulse, but also identified those that had a change management mindset, thought leaders, people that were looking out into what the world was going to look like, and spent a lot of time listening, whiteboarding, doing those kinds of things. So that part, I think, worked and got us off the ground and focused. I think the harder part, and although we tried to do it, was being disciplined about defining the market segments, the verticals, and the types of companies and accounts we were going to go after. We definitely had the change management right, but in the end, what really helped us is that we picked a focus, and we really worked hard at defining our ideal customer profile, and we also really worked hard to work with those prospects and customers that had that foresight, the early adopters who really wanted to make a difference in their business, and also were looking to advance their career with something interesting and new. And we took advantage of all of those things. I just wish I would have done that faster and really committed to taking that approach.
Yeah. Yeah. So which part do you wish you would have done faster is focusing on those early adopters who you're not just talking to, hey, these are the people who we could serve right now and they kind of get it, but those people who, we get this, but what's next? Give me more, and focusing more effort as opposed to 50-50 balance between the going to the market as it is today and those people looking forward. Do you think more time should be spent on those folks that are seeing the next 5 to 10 years in the market that you're serving?
Yeah, and even in our world, the next 2 to 3 years. So absolutely,
right.
More focus on those people. But also, what I meant by that aggressively, to me, it's all connected in product market fit and focus. But being specific, it's being convicted to a market segment and getting the company faster to rally around that. Now, there's some realities. In some cases, you still have revenue streams that you need to support that are keeping the lights on and are funding the business. Maybe, that first phase of the company where it may not be your present and future, but it is what you need to do. And that was the case a little bit here at Integrate. But still ripping off that Band-Aid and making that decision, every marketing and sales leader and certainly founder, when you talk to them, you got to go through the process, but there are ways to accelerate it and kind of making some convictions to get the faster product market fit. And those early adopters, if you're successful, become your best advocates, and they feel like they're also part of the mission. Again, especially Integrate is a good example, bringing a new idea, a new approach to the market, in this case, marketing technology.
Yeah. Do you think there are a lot of marketers on teams at that stage, Scott, that see the most pushback from maybe their sales counterpart, or maybe that's the founder or founders, or maybe both of those, or maybe those are one and the same at the stage that they're in, that there's pushback because as you try to narrow that focus, then they see that total addressable market shrinking very quickly, and they have maybe more struggle with that than the marketing leader who's looking at the benefits of focusing in on that niche? Or does it really depend on the organizational leader maybe?
No, it does depend on the organizational leader, but especially in the broader tech space, founders have a couple of things, and I love working with them. I have founder mentality, but I've not founded a company personally, but worked with enough of them to understand, including our own Jeremy Bloom, who's fantastic. But they see, by their nature of being entrepreneurs, they see the world as big opportunity, and we need to do more. So you're a bit going a little bit counterculture to that, even though they intellectually understand it. The vision is so much bigger, and the business opportunity is so much brighter. It's getting that balance right. That's why you've got to be a true champion of getting that focus, getting that ICP, and working maybe with a smaller group of prospects and customers and influencers in the beginning, and then build from there. The second thing is founders also, when they're out with investors, everybody wants to know how big the market is. So that tends to influence. And so there's some tensions that pull in that area. And you have to get that balance right.
It's story time again, and we're talking about search engine marketing. Today, I'm going to tell you about a challenge within Pelican Case's B2B division. Pelican needed a partner with deep B2B expertise that could get them a massive bump in leads from their pay-per-click campaigns without increasing spend. After vetting a handful of agencies, they decided to go with Directive Consulting, a B2B search marketing agency located in Southern California. Directive took on this challenge by refining their targeting and building custom landing pages for their advertising efforts. Once implemented, they saw a 208% increase in conversion rate. Needless to say, Pelican Cases met their initiative. I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
So one of the other lessons I know you mentioned as we were chatting offline before this interview, Scott, is about building a category. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. We have a series going within this show on category creation, and I've heard people reach out to me and talk about or ask really what is the difference between differentiation and really category creation. As someone who's been a part of a company like Integrate and through these evolutions in the market, what would you say there, and what role did category creation play in this phase of growth for you guys at Integrate?
Well, a couple of things. Even though Integrate has blown through the startup phase and we're in high growth mode, we're still in the process of that category creation. You want to be able to create it, but it's also there's market dynamics that you have to deal with. So what I found is the category creation, and by the way, some of the pioneers in this space is Christopher Lochhead and his team, Playing Bigger, has a lot about category creation if anybody wants to really dig into that. But what I found in going through this process is it's very different to do positioning and differentiation, which most of us marketers could do pretty well, or at least understand that principle. Right. And when you're creating a category, it's so much more, really have to be an advocate and evangelical. You have to be able to articulate and paint the landscape in the future as well as the present and what that category is going to look like. You have to really work the influencers. So yes, it's some of the analysts, but in the early stages, it might be those that have a lot of influence on the inner circle, or that have a big voice on stage, or in a blog, or an individual advisory. It's not just the big analyst firms. And so you have to have those people behind you and believing in not just your mission, but that there's a new world out there, and therefore a new category is forming. You also have to have, as I spoke to earlier, not just advocates for your solution, but advocates that there is a better way to do that. And you see that in a lot of markets today that can see and connect the dots and be able then to amplify that. And the last thing I would say, it's a little bit counterintuitive, especially when you want to be a great revenue-driven marketer and a big partner with sales. You have to overinvest a bit in thought leadership, because that's what's going to really help you shape the category. You got to carry more than your own weight. You've got to carry the weight of the category as well. Right. And that's important too. The last thing I'll say that I've really learned is it's almost like an infomercial on steroids. You've really got to nail this is the way it was before, and this is what happens after. And this new category is going to change the world. I know that's very traditional in the way many people position, open a sales presentation, or any meaningful communications or presentation is the before and after. But that piece of it, I think, is another important tactic in creating the category.
Yeah, but I think there's one key distinction between presenting the before and after that you talked about there, Scott. It's not the before and after of our product. Here's your pain, here's our product, here's the solution. It's a level above that. It's here's the bigger shift that's going on in the market.
Massively.
Right. And so it's the same before and after, but it's at a bigger scale, and people connect to that larger story. The OpenView article about ZUORA'S best sales deck ever that has been, highly touted and replicated and things like that. They pointed to, the bigger shift in the subscription economy, as opposed to this is what your day is like dealing with payments now, and this is what it's going to be like afterwards. They went a level up. And I think that's the same thing as what you touched on there with category creation. If you're going to lead, if you're going to produce thought leadership content in your category, it's bigger than yourself or your organization, because a category is not a category if you're the only one living in it, right? Then it is just product
100%.
differentiation.
That's exactly right. And emphasize that what you said about ZUORA, that was not a technology or a shift in that sense. We're talking about a whole business and economic. It was a business model move, an economic shift. It was a technology shift. It had all those pieces. So let's not fool anybody. You also have to be in the right space in most cases to be able to build a category. There has to be a lot of truth in it. You can't manufacture it.
Right. I think that's a great point as well. Awesome. So one of the other things, Scott, that I know you mentioned was key for you guys in the next level of building your demand gen engine and really expanding to that next level was leveraging the power of alliances and strategic partnerships. Can you tell us a little bit about the lessons learned there that might be applicable for other scaling teams?
Sure. And in the beginning, our demand gen engine was very account-based and making sure, again, we didn't oversteer to try to do too much. As you move from kind of heavy thought leadership and positioning and a lot of one-on-one working with sales, you now need to, in order to hit your numbers, to move from 10 to 25 million and beyond. Again, this is the stage we're talking about. You have to put in some key pieces. And you can hire salespeople all you want, but there's already, in our market, for example, a wonderful set of partners who are already out working with your target enterprise customers, and they already have a trusted advisor relationship. And so the key is not to ask them to resell your product, but you want to co-sell and go to market together. So you're giving them, those partners, a new capability. The customer is winning because they're already in there doing work with their other systems, their other processes, and all the things that go with it. And that really was a way we began to scale, is using partners. And the key is, and this is not cornball, this is true, there's a difference between partners and having a large volume and having partnerships where that is more focused on a smaller group that, again, believe in the same mission, believe in the purpose, and can see that bigger picture that we've been talking about in the category.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need more people rowing in the same direction to, exponentially increase your efforts. I can definitely relate to that, Scott. So what's next from there? What does kind of that next stage tend to look like, for maybe a team that's approaching that next level of high growth beyond, 10 million and above and in ARR? Some of the things there that maybe to start to look out for if they're kind of at that tipping point. I think that would be a great place to kind of come full circle with this conversation.
Yeah, well, the living example, during the year, as I talked about, we had a max of 5 marketing people. Just in a year or two since then, we have 17. And what happens next is you really have to focus on the enterprise brand build. Branding meaning clear articulation of your narrative and your story, really be able to connect it to your demand engine without losing the momentum in your partnerships, et cetera. So the invest in brand, while it's always there on a one-to-one, you have to put some money behind it. And in our case, we hired a VP of marketing, very strong in this area. We expanded on more expertise. So we have deeper digital expertise and event expertise. We have MDR, marketing development rep expertise. And so we put that in place now to really be able to crank the engine and to be much more data-driven in our approach as we move to this next phase and be able to scale the business. And one of the keys there, Logan, is that really comes from all of us, but our CEO really believes in this, is you want to hire talent who've kind of been through this high-growth process before. That's a learning, I think, that when you talk to founders who've been successful in scaling and growing businesses and serving customers, you need people who've seen it before. That's not to discount grit or great work, but you really need to put people in place who are excited about the rocket ship ride and know what to do, because there's a lot of meteors out there.
Yeah, folks that have dodged a couple meteors or run into one and have the scars to know what to do next time they see one coming towards them or recognize one coming towards them, right?
That's exactly right. Some pattern recognition, and they can, and they also know other talent that they can bring in. So the speed to market becomes important. There's no ramp up time, that they could hit the ground running quickly and have an impact on the business and on your customers.
Yeah, you need more people with experience and specialization, because you've got a lot more balls in the air at once at that stage. I think that analogy definitely holds true, even though I kind of mix juggling with a rocket ship. But hopefully people are following me there. Two analogies hold true, maybe. Anyhow, well, Scott, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom from lessons learned over the years, and best of luck to you guys in the next stage of growth at Integrate. On that note, if there are any folks listening to this that would like to pick your brain, ask any follow-up questions, or just stay connected with you, learn more about Integrate, what's the best way for them to reach out?
There's two ways. LinkedIn is obviously a great place. Scott Vaughan, Vaughan. Reach out and drop me a note. And second way is we're at integrate.com. Very simple brand name, and a website you can learn more about what we're doing there. And always, one of the joys I have is comparing and sharing notes with other marketing leaders. And by the way, Logan, keep carrying that growth torch. It's a really great area and a cause that will help all of us marketers.
I appreciate it, Scott. Well, thank you again. This has been fantastic. Really appreciate you coming on the show today, Scott.
Cheers.
Digital marketing agencies have a tough job. You have to stay on top of the latest marketing strategies for your clients and your agency. What if there was a way you could address both at the same time? Imagine your agency putting out content with greater quality and quantity. Envision bringing your clients a turnkey solution for one of B2B marketing's fastest growing media strategies, podcasting. You know, all those clients asking for your help with their account-based marketing efforts? Picture being the first to bring them the idea of content-based networking, showing them the proven strategy for breaking into their most coveted accounts. Here's the concept. Sweetfish Media is looking to work with a limited number of innovative agencies interested in a new partnership model. We produce a podcast for your agency. You introduce the power of podcasting and Sweetfish services to your clients. Everybody wins. Learn more at sweetfishpartners.com.